Happy holidays, listener. You join me today on a beach, or by a pool, or wherever you happen to enjoy spending your summer months, to kick back, relax, and play some recent video games. To be specific, some recent Nintendo video games. Now, between June 25th and July 23rd, Nintendo published, depending on how much we blur the lines, 3 first-party developed games. Now, if I've done my maths right, and excluding Nintendo Switch 2 editions, that is in addition to the 4 released in the preceding months and the 3 more we currently know about for the rest of the year. That is 3 modestly scoped, relatively affordable games designed for broad audiences and featuring, if your game, tens of hours of replay value. Any one of these could be your summer game. Taken together, they are a big Nintendo-shaped umbrella, a collective shield from the inhospitable heat of the UK in July, prevailing gaming trends and, if we're generous, the endless industry bad news. What are these games? Why do they exist? What are they doing right and wrong? What do they say about what Nintendo is as a developer and publisher? And what do they say about the future of the Switch 2? As much as I'd like the opposite to be true, I cannot answer this alone, so today, a very special guest. A personal podcasting touchstone and someone who has shared Nintendo's home for many years and knows more about their country's gaming culture than anyone else. It's a long, hot summer and we've got a long, hot discussion to get through, so let's dive straight in. Hi, I'm Andrew. Welcome to Dialogue Tree. This is episode 47. Stay fresh. Living a Nintendo summer with Tokyo Game Life. I want to talk about some games that Nintendo have released, 3 very different games to define the summer weeks. But I can't do this alone. With whom should I speak? Well, there's only one person with whom I should discuss these gaming treats. Joining me today to talk about all this play is a very special guest who lives the Nintendo life every day. It gives me great pleasure to introduce that guest today. It's the man with the plan who broadcasts from Japan. It's Mono from Tokyo Game Life. Mono, thank you very much for joining me today. Welcome to Dialogue Tree. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, we were just talking a little earlier about air conditioning, and mine is pumped up a lot because it is extremely hot here in Tokyo. The Japanese summer has officially started. So I'm living in the AC life right now.
I am living the un-AC'd life. Yeah, we don't believe in air conditioning as a species here in the UK. So it's being unseasonably hot here and there. It seems like a perfect time to talk about this Nintendo summer that we are currently living. And we have a lot to talk about, but I feel it would be remiss of me to, as I've got you on the show, to not talk about you and your life and your show and what you do there. So before we get to all of the Nintendo stuff, would you like to tell the listener who you are and what you do?
Yeah, I go by Mono on the podcast. I'm the host of Tokyo Game Life, a Tokyo-based video game podcast mostly focusing on Nintendo and gaming culture in Japan's capital. Every episode, I feature either a place to visit in Tokyo that's gaming related, or I highlight some sort of element of Japanese gaming culture, typically like a franchise that has some Japanese games or some other element that is very unique to Japanese gaming scene. So I like to try to focus on things that not a whole lot of people talk about regarding gaming in Japan.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the show. I've been listening to it for a long time now. I guess the first question I had for you was, what prompted you to start the podcast?
I mostly started the podcast because I love podcasts. I love listening to podcasts. So I really wanted to start one. And ironically, I didn't really have a good idea about what should I make a podcast about. I just wanted to make a podcast, which is kind of a backwards way of doing it. And I had a couple of ideas about what I should do. But then I thought, okay, well, I love gaming. That's what I'm doing pretty much every day. And since I live in Tokyo, I think I have a unique perspective, or I have a access that a lot of people do not have. And so I thought, okay, instead of making, a typical, I'm going to run down the news type of podcast, I wanted to make something very different and highlight things that I felt like people weren't talking about, or also just things that I wanted to talk about, or just my personal interest, things that I felt like was kind of going under the radar, and even stuff that didn't go under the radar. I felt like people are talking about it, but they're not honing into what I want to get out of it or what I want to focus on. I know one of the big things, my first episode ever, I want to say, one of the games I highlighted was Pokemon Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, which is a game I think a lot of people despise. And a lot of people really wrote it off in like, a 5-minute segment on a podcast. Oh, I played it. It looked ugly, blah, blah, blah. Done. But to me, Diamond and Pearl is such an important game in the in Nintendo's history. And so I thought that, a lot of people are kind of brushing it off. So I really went into the perspective of everything I cover is something that I really want to cover and I want to talk about. It's not an obligation, or it's not that I feel like I need to talk about it. I really wanted to pick things and curate it a bit more compared to a typical gaming podcast that is more generalized. They talk about everything. I don't talk about everything. I try to pick a few things each week and try to really hone in and find what is the point I want to get across, or what is really interesting, especially from a cultural aspect about these games or the topics I cover.
Something I appreciate about Tokyo Game Life is the tight structure, the quality production, and you've got a very confident manner about you. Do you have any past experience with broadcasting, or do you have any particular influences as a broadcaster?
No, nothing like that. Actually, when I lived in America, I was an elementary school teacher. And I guess from that, I just learned how to project my voice and how to speak very loudly and clearly. And then also, I've had a lot of really strange jobs over my job career. I've worked in, I was a teacher, then I also worked in marketing and then sales and all this other stuff. And also when I worked in sales, some people did comment oh, wow, when you're giving a presentation, you are really good at it. And the way you project your voice is really excellent. And I thought, that's not really something a lot of people told me. And to be honest, I didn't really prepare or anything like that either in terms of how I project myself. I just try to be as clear as possible. And maybe just I'm a naturally loud person. And I think I just had, experiences kind of being the quote unquote leader of things. Even in college, I was actually the club president of the Japanese Culture Club at my college. So,
oh, wow.
Every week I would have to get in front of a bunch of students and talk about what we're going to do this week and manage everything. And then, when I became a teacher, I also had to project my voice and, working in sales and marketing, you kind of have to sell yourself or sell the product. So I think it's just a natural evolution of my career path. And then when I wanted to start podcasting, I was thinking about how should I sound? And I'm not going for an intentional fake voice or anything, but I do want to project myself because I think my natural voice is very quiet and mumbly. So I kind of need to put forth the effort to sound broadcastery compared to a lot of other podcasters, if that makes sense. A lot of people are really good at naturally speaking. I'm not that great at naturally speaking. So that's why I have a very boosted voice.
Okay, that's really interesting. Like I was saying, I think that's one of the standout sort of features of your show, how confidently you speak about all the subjects that you're covering. Another element of that is, now you don't present Tokyo Game Life as a review show, but I think those are a standout feature of it. I think your monologues on the featured games are great. You articulate what a game is and why you like it in a very clear manner. Similarly, do you have any past experience as a reviewer or a journalist?
Actually, in college, I did study journalism, and I did work for the art section of my school newspaper. I don't think I ever covered a video game, though. It was always movies and music and things like that. But I don't have any formal review, I guess, training, if such a thing exists. But again, I tried to focus on, what do I want to say about the game, as opposed to here's the score or breaking down, piece by piece. Although a lot of my reviews, quote unquote reviews, I try to frame it as I just want to talk about the game or give my impressions on it. And sometimes it is so easy to fall into the trap of the graphics are this, the gameplay is this, the sound is this. And sometimes I do fall in that trap. So I can't say I'm 100% original in terms of how I present my opinions of games. But I do try to hone in on what do I want to say about the game specifically that is maybe outside the bounds of just, it was fun or not. What is the game trying to achieve, or what is going to be its footprint, or what is its impact? And I do cover a lot of new games, of course, but I also cover retro games as well. And I really do enjoy covering retro games because there you really have a more clear picture about its overall impact on gaming, or sometimes its non-impact. And you kind of ponder and wonder okay, maybe why didn't it make that big of an impact, or why is it underrated, and things like that. So yeah, I think if you want to make a good game review, you need to really hone in on not really going by the bullet points, but try to focus on how the game kind of emotionally speaks to you and what do you want to say about the game? What's like the thesis statement of your time with the game?
I think most people listening to this show probably aware of Tokyo Game Life, but for anyone who isn't, are there any episodes that you would like to point those listeners to that are highlights for you, or that give a sort of good broad general overview of your show?
I think the one that has like the most audio downloads for whatever reason is my Moai in Japanese games episode. Maybe just the guest is like super popular is Matt Sefton, he is a developer. He develops like Playdate games and some other things. And he also runs the excellent website called moai.games. That's the URL. And he just has this incredible catalog of Moai in all video games, not just Japanese games. But as somebody who plays a lot of Japanese games, there are a ton of Moai. And Japan has such an interesting relationship with Easter Island and Moai specifically. And I thought, okay, this guy is an expert about this super hyper specific thing. And I'm also kind of curious about Japan's relationship with Moai, this non-Japanese unusual thing. And so I got him on the podcast. We had a great conversation about Moai in Japanese games. And I went in going, let's try to find out why there are Moai in so many Japanese games. And we kind of do have a definitive answer. So I'm very happy that we kind of honed in on why this happened. So that's definitely a really good episode. I really recommend a lot of people start with or check out because, yeah, I don't think a whole lot of other podcasts have a Moai in Japanese game episode. And another one, I do like my travel episodes as well. I'm trying to think what are some evergreen ones because I do cover a lot of pop-up shops and events. So one I did recently, it was Poke Park Kanto, which is the new big Pokemon theme park. And I talked to Don Koopman, who is a big Nintendo fan from Europe. And I also had him on when Donkey Kong Country at Universal Studios opened. Like for whatever reason, he is like there day one when these huge Nintendo theme parks open up in Japan. So we had a great conversation about theme parks and Nintendo kind of expanding their IP. And yeah, that's a really good quote unquote travelogue episode. And we also give a lot of practical advice, like if you want tickets, you got to do this. This is how you line up. This is how you do this and that. So I try to offer a lot of real deal practical advice when I'm doing my episodes relating to that. And another one, I'm trying to think about what's a game specific one, because I either have, the way I break down my podcast, I have a feature section, which is either about a specific place to visit in Tokyo that's game related, or some sort of general topic like the Moai in Japanese games. But I also just cover like games. Like I want to talk about this game. And I'm trying to think, I did talk about Wizardry, the original Wizardry game with the developer of Wizardry, Robert Woodhead, which was a great opportunity. And we really dig into the history of Wizardry and also its impact on Japanese gaming. And we also talked about his recent meeting with Yuji Horii, because even though Yuji Horii for decades has said Wizardry is a major inspiration on Dragon Quest, they didn't meet until like 2 years ago, face to face, which is kind of crazy. So we talked about that as well. And so also I do have just a website called tokyogamelife.com with all my episodes. And I do have a search engine. So if you just type in Zelda or Pokemon or Kirby, whatever your interest is, those episodes will pop up. So you can just hone in directly on the Mario episodes or the Kirby episodes if you really want to.
I think that covers Tokyo Game Life in brief. And I'd like to talk to you now a little bit about Tokyo itself. You touched on your sort of career and your life in America before you moved to Japan. So if you're able to share, what initially took you to Tokyo?
Well, it was always a dream to live in Japan. I just wanted that experience. So I actually came to Japan as a student, studying Japanese language at a Japanese language school. But I came as, a grown adult. So I wasn't like a fresh-faced college student. So I really came kind of mid-career. And I thought, okay, I want to try to study Japanese and improve that and get a job in Japan. And fortunately I did. And I'm still here many years later and hopefully many years in the future as well. And so, yeah, it's basically just kind of a quote unquote lifelong dream to live in Japan.
One sort of like big, broad, kind of woolly question I had for you is, what is unique about how video game culture is treated or represented in Tokyo?
I just think Tokyo in general, if you have any sort of hobby or interest or you're part of any subculture, Tokyo will treat you no matter what it is. If you're really into video games, there are so many different video game stores you can visit. If you're into fishing, there are so many different places to fish around Tokyo. There's all these like secret shops that sell fishing gear. If you're into, I don't know, like ping pong, or if you're in the bouldering, there's almost always something there in Tokyo. And of course, gaming, when I was a kid growing up, gaming was Japan. All games came from Japan. In my mind, this is where all the games I played came from. And so, of course, it has, it is a big pop cultural element, and it's part of Japan's soft power, is that once upon a time, pretty much all games came from here. And even now, Japanese gaming is extremely popular. And so, yeah, if you are really into gaming, I wouldn't say it's like everywhere. Not everyone in Japan plays games, of course. It's not ubiquitous. But those subcultures are there if you want to seek them out, and then you can really dive deep into them. Like, for example, if you're really into pro wrestling, if you go talk to the average Japanese person, they probably don't care about pro wrestling. But if you know where to go, you will find like the hot spot of pro wrestling. And then everyone there is wearing pro wrestling shirts and things like that. So you kind of have to know like which neighborhoods are your niche.
Is there one sort of favorite non-gaming spot that you have in Tokyo?
I really like going to like Japanese gardens as well, because I'm a huge fan of like matcha, like Japanese green tea. And actually, I used to study tea ceremony in Japan, Japanese tea ceremony. And I did that for like several years, but then COVID kind of like put an end to that. But I still, of course, I'm a huge matcha fan. So if you go to any sort of like Japanese tea garden, they probably do have like a small, like chaya, like a tea shop there. And then you can get some like a bowl of matcha tea and some wagashi, which is Japanese like candy, or nerikiri is what it's called. It's like Japanese sweets. Hamarikyu Gardens has a really great like matcha place that you can go into. And Kyufurukawa Gardens as well. That's kind of a more obscure one, but it's a really great one near Komagome. And they also have like a big like English rose garden too. So if you want a slice of home, you can go there as well. I'm trying to think what are some really under the radar ones? Maybe like Ningyocho near Nihonbashi. That has like a lot of Edo style buildings that are still preserved. And Nihonbashi in general is a really nice place, even though it's kind of in the like the fancy area, and it is in the more like government area as well. So there's not a whole lot of like tourist attractions, so to speak. But if you go there, like they're famous for their tempura. So you can go to these amazing tempura shops there. They have a nice view of the river, and they have a lot of really awesome museums. The Currency Museum is there if you want to know about the history of Japanese money. And they also have Ningacho, which is like this old neighborhood that, again, it just has these old style buildings there. So it really feels like you are walking around in like late 19th century Japan. I kind of live near Shinjuku. So Shinjuku is pretty much my haunt. If I ever want to just like go shopping or go see a movie or get a bite to eat, I do hang around Shinjuku, which is really ironically becoming, right now it is a major tourist hotspot, but it's also becoming quite a gaming hotspot as well, which I didn't really expect.
How do you think that has happened?
I think it's just because it's becoming more and more of a tourist spot. So maybe people just naturally move over there, or maybe the rent is also cheap in Shinjuku. I think it has kind of a bad reputation in Japan as being, dangerous or like seedy. Right. So I think maybe the rent is cheap. And so people just move here and they're like, well, I don't really mind the seediness, so I'll build up something here. But yeah, Shinjuku alone, it's got multiple retro game shops. I recently covered Haroff Shinjuku, which is, Haroff is the famous brand of used media. And for them to open up a major store just like in the middle of Tokyo is pretty much unheard of. So I was really shocked when they did that. And there's also Surugaya, which is another retro game store and used goods shop. But there's also like Yodobashi Camera. Their headquarters is in Shinjuku, which is a major electronic chain. And they sell a lot of, brand new games and things like that. And there's Big Camera as well. There's tons of like electronic stores here. And there's often like pop-up shops and events coming up pretty soon at a department store in Shinjuku is a Final Fantasy X exhibit celebrating its 25th anniversary. So ironically, it is becoming more of a otaku hangout or a hotspot for a lot of pop culture media and things like that. So it's a great place to quote unquote live nearish.
Okay. Speaking specifically of gaming culture in Tokyo, is there one place you would recommend to a first time visitor and one sort of deep cut that you'd suggest to a seasoned traveler?
First time visitor. I'm trying to think, because if I say something like Akihabara, I'll be eaten alive because they're like, that's just like, oh, people are saying Akihabara is like washed now, but people are saying that 10 years ago, probably 20 years ago even, they were saying like in 2006 or 2006, they're like, oh, Akihabara is ruined. I'm sure those people were saying that. But Akihabara is a good, like, if you know where to go, it is a good like one-stop like shopping spot to pick out what you want. But yeah, Shinjuku, again, it's also becoming kind of a hotspot for gaming. You can go to Hard Off, you can go to Studugaya. They might have some sort of, you can go to like Yodobashi for new stuff. And there's like a big bookstore there if you want some like gaming books. And they might have some sort of pop-up event or something like that. And there's like Don Quixote and all these other things. So Shinjuku is like kind of low key. And there's like a bunch of arcades too. And they do have, even though there's not a quote unquote dedicated retro arcade, they do have like retro arcade cabs in like the Taito station if you go on the top floor. And there's actually, quite a lot you could do in Shinjuku. And like Square Enix is headquartered there. So they have like the Square Enix Cafe is in Shinjuku. So there's ironically like plenty of gaming stuff to do only in Shinjuku. So that is, again, slowly becoming, or maybe quickly becoming, a major gaming hub. But you've got, Akihabara. Nakano Broadway is another good one if you like retro gaming. Some people say like, oh, Nakano Broadway is kind of on its way out. But again, if you go there, you'll definitely see stuff you've never seen before. So I highly recommend Nakano Broadway as well. And I think it also depends on what you're really interested in. Like, for example, if you love Square Enix, Shinjuku has a lot of stuff. But if you love Falcom, for example, they're headquartered in Tachikawa, which is a little bit outside of Tokyo. And sometimes they do have some sort of like Falcom related events there. And the Kotobukiya, which is a toy store or figure model store, they do have a dedicated section for like the Trail series or like Falcom games only at this Kotobukiya near their headquarters. So I think like try to think about, is your favorite Japanese gaming company in Tokyo? And if so, go kind of near them and you might find something special.
Last question on Tokyo and Japan in general. What are some of your favorite representations of Japan in video games?
That's a good question. Ironically, right now I'm playing on and off, mostly off right now, but I've been playing Assassin's Creed Shadows. And I think a lot of Ubisoft games get a bad rap for being kind of, copy paste, and they are but they do put a ton of attention into authenticity, if that makes sense. Like a lot of the castles and temples in the game are almost one-to-one to like they are in real life. I visited a temple in the game and I thought, whoa, this place is so beautiful. Is this a real place? And then I Googled it and it's still around today and you can visit it. Wow. So next time I go to Kyoto, I don't have the name off the top of my head. I need to go back in the game and visit it. And I thought, wow, okay, I'll definitely do that. And ironically, since it is quote unquote a bit more accurate, since, real life places were not made to be video game maps, they are a little cumbersome to actually navigate in the game. But I do enjoy the authenticity. So ironically, Ubisoft and Assassin's Creed Shadows, one of the more, authentic games to like that era in terms of Japan. And some other great representations of Japan in video games. You've got Persona as well. That's like they really do a great job in focusing not really on like the major tourist spots, but like the everyday, where are people going? What are people doing? Yeah. Shin Megami Tensei games in general. Like I remember Shin Megami Tensei 5, it opens up in Shinagawa Station and like in this like a hallway, it's like kind of an iconic hallway because there's so many people can fit into it. And Shin Megami Tensei series, Persona series does Tokyo great. And of course you got to give it to Like a Dragon, the Kamurocho is pretty much so close to Kabukicho. And even when they extended out into other places, like when they went to Yokohama for one game, it's so authentic to Yokohama as well. So, and there's all these deep cuts. They have so many Japanese brands they highlight. And it's really hard to beat them going like so accurate because like you can go to like this building that does nothing in the game. You can go to it in real life and see what it is. Even like the goofy parking lot where you train in the game, that parking lot is really there for whatever reason. So those are some great ones. I'm trying to think of like a really deep cut. What's a great representation of a more stylized, like, I always love seeing like Mount Fuji and like Kirby and things like that because HAL has an office in Yamanashi, which is near Mount Fuji. So I do like it when they kind of call out their own, like their own home. Like, for example, Capcom and SNK are both headquartered in Osaka. So anytime they have like some sort of like Osaka stage for the background is really cool, or some sort of Osaka reference. So I do like that a lot of these companies are kind of prideful of where they are.
The last sort of section of this little on-ramp that we're taking here, we should divert to Nintendo and establish where you're coming from when it comes to the company. So first question for you is, what was your first experience with Nintendo or their games?
I think the first time I ever laid my hands on any sort of Nintendo console was really just a kiosk at some game store. And I think my aunt also had an NES, Nintendo Entertainment System. And yeah, from that, I thought, okay, well, I want this. And then I got an NES. And then from that point on, I was a huge Nintendo fan. Although ironically, when I got my NES, so I have started like every console generation, but when I got my NES, the Super Nintendo was already out. And the N64 was like almost out. So, but as a kid, I'm not keeping up with the news. So I just thought, oh, all video games are NES. And ironically, my Super Nintendo history was like very truncated because I got got NES and then I got a Super NES. But then very quickly, the N64 came out and then I shifted over to N64. And then from then on, I've just, been a Nintendo diehard ever since.
Was there a game that made you aware of the identity and philosophy of the company that marked them as something more than just a producer of games for you?
Well, to me, I think when I really became interested in like the gaming industry was the N64 days. That's when I really started to understand, okay, what are game companies called? What's the name of them? And who are game developers? And that's when I started reading gaming magazines as well. And games come out on a specific date and you can go get them and they're announced ahead of time. But for me, I think maybe they hooked me young, because first game I ever played was Super Mario Brothers on NES. So when that's your first game, it's hard to go back from that. It's hard to do a hard pivot into, I don't know, Xbox or something like that. So it might just be they brainwashed me early and then I had no other choice. But really during the N64 days, that's when I became really interested in gaming developers, and especially HAL Laboratories really fascinated me, because they just had an incredible output during the N64 days and so many interesting games. And that's when I started to learn about, who is Satoru Iwata? Who is Masahiro Sakurai? And who is like Shigeru Miyamoto? And the fact that these games kind of had these big personalities or these really notable people attached to them, that really interested me. It was somewhat similar to film in some respects. So I think that's what really got me interested in the deeper elements of gaming in general.
What to you is unique about Nintendo as a developer? Like, if you had to name one aspect of their approach that is the reason for their success, or at least their ability to connect with a big audience, what would that be?
I think one of my favorite things is that they truly don't care what other people think. Like they are not really followers. Sometimes they will release a game, and maybe we can also talk about it soon. I do feel recently they have been a bit more aware of trends about different genres that have emerged. And I can tell, okay, somebody at Nintendo played such and such game. For example, somebody at Nintendo knows what a roguelike is. But Nintendo, they really march to the beat of their own drum, which can be bad. But oftentimes, I don't really think it's bad. Sometimes it's weird, or it's a 2-step forward, 1-step backward kind of situation. But they oftentimes, like, they are a game changer. They're the one who are making big genre shifts, or they are the major disruptors, even though they're like the biggest gaming company. They're the ones that are making the biggest advancements in the industry. Like, look at the Switch and look what they did. That led to the handheld PC industry. I think that's something only Nintendo can do. Other companies, they are really focused on, making numbers go up, following trends, being a bit safe. Nintendo is not afraid to take risks. And what's great about Nintendo is that they have the ability to fail. Like, for example, Mario Tennis Fever came out and is probably not doing that good in terms of sales, but that's not going to sink Nintendo. They can weather that storm, and maybe they can just later on, maybe there'll be a really great Mario Tennis Fever that sells 3 million copies week one. You never know, because of course they had like Ultra Smash on Wii U, but then Aces was a huge hit. So they don't let their setbacks become major setbacks. And they can bring back anything, and they are really disruptors, and they're really innovative. I think that's what really sets Nintendo apart.
I think that's enough for sort of big questions. We'll get into some good old-fashioned quick-fire, shallow ones now. What is your favorite Nintendo console?
This is a basic answer, but I really do think it is the Switch, because Nintendo's output during this era is pretty much unparalleled. You've got Mario Odyssey, you've got Splatoon 3, you've got Tears of the Kingdom. They revived so many franchises. Some of the best entries of a franchise is their Switch version. Like the best Zelda is on Switch, the best Metroid. I still kind of go between Dread and Super Metroid, but I do think maybe Dread is actually the best Metroid game. The best Mario Kart was on Switch, Mario Kart 8. Yeah, it's just like, well, they've topped themselves in pretty much every single genre. I would say maybe the only blunder is maybe Pokemon, but even so, those were massive successes. Definitely not a blunder in terms of sales. And even those games, I still do like them. And they have some great spin-offs. I love New Pokemon Snap, for example. And yeah, and again, it is kind of cheating. You have so much access to retro games. Like you can play Final Fantasy X on your Switch. You can play Capcom vs. SNK 2 on your Switch. You can play Super Mario Brothers 3 on your Switch. So they just have an incredible retro catalog. And there is still the novelty, even now, of playing a game that was once locked to your TV, playing it handheld. Last year when the Capcom Fighting Collection came out, going back to Capcom vs. SNK 2, that's just a sprite game. But once upon a time, that was only in the arcades, and the home version was compromised. But now I can play it in my hands. That was something like unimaginable. To have an arcade perfect port in your hands was once upon a time. There's no way that would ever happen. But finally it happened 20 years later. I still get a kick out of that.
This feels like a truly evil question. What are your top 3 Nintendo games?
I have like really basic ones. I think number 1, you got to put maybe Super Mario World. I play that game so much. Probably the game I've cleared the most. Every few years I play, and every few years I'm a little worried, like, will it lose its luster? Will I not like it? But every time I love it. Every single level is just so unique and so wonderful. And also Paper Mario, that's kind of it's 1A, 1B, like between Super Mario World and Paper Mario. The original Paper Mario on N64. I think that's just the perfect game in terms of pacing, in terms of aesthetics, in terms of how you interact with the combat system, how it tells its story. It delivers on every single front. It's just like the perfect, everything I want from a video game is in Paper Mario. It's got the little oinks, the pigs you raise. So that's just like maybe the perfect game. I really do want a remake though. I'm looking forward to a remake. So I was a little peeved when they did the 1,000-Year Door first before Paper Mario. But now that we have stronger hardware, maybe they can go back to the first game. And then number 3, a newer game, Tears of the Kingdom, The Legend of Zelda, Tears of the Kingdom. I do think that is definitely the best Zelda game. There is some pushback about, it's, Breath of the Wild 1.5 is DLC, blah, blah, blah. But I think that game is extremely unparalleled in terms of a piece of adventure fiction, not necessarily in the story in terms of like what is happening in the cutscenes, but in how it conveys the feeling of adventure when you're playing the game. I think it is truly unparalleled. And I went into Tears of the Kingdom thinking this is not going to be as good as Breath of the Wild. So lower your expectations. Even if it's as half as good as Breath of the Wild, it'll still be great. So go in with that expectation. But it just blew me away. So yeah, top 3. Yeah, 2 Marios and a Zelda. Not really fancy. I know that's pretty basic, but what can I do?
As someone with a deep knowledge of Nintendo, I think you might be a good person to answer this ridiculous question. You can sacrifice one franchise to revive another. What currently active franchise do you kill off? And which inactive one do you bring back?
A currently active franchise to kill off. I kind of want to kill off Warriors games or Nintendo Warrior spinoffs. Because every time they announce them, no offense to Warrior fans, and those are well-reviewed games, but I just glaze over my face. I just lose, my soul leaves my body anytime a Warrior game is in a direct. And one day they're going to release Xenoblade Warriors, which I think is maybe the game I would care the least about in Nintendo's entire gamography. But we got to deal with the entire marketing cycle of Xenoblade Warriors. I'm just waiting for that. I kind of do want to kill off Metroid because sometimes Metroid fans are just extremely annoying. And I'm not a big, and especially I'm a 2D Metroid guy. Prime 1 is a good game, but I never thought it was the quote unquote Citizen Kane gaming. I do like it. I do think it's a good game. So when Prime 4 came out and it got kind of sevens, I thought, okay, well, I don't have to buy this game then. I have no obligation to play this game. If it got Metroid Dread level reviews, I feel like, man, I got to play Metroid Prime 4. And bring back, what's a good one to bring back? Because a lot of them they have brought back, but one I actually played recently that I really loved was Chibi Robo. I played it on NSO, and I really love that game. And ironically, the other Chibi Robo games are kind of not like that first game. So I would love for them to bring back Chibi Robo if it played like the first game.
That's funny because my answer to this was going to be killing Metroid and reviving Kuru Kuru Kuruin.
Oh, yes.
So that's two people sacrificing Metroid for the greater good. Sorry, Metroid fans. Finally, in the spirit of Tokyo Game Life, Masahiro Sakurai calls you up and says, for some reason, I'm putting a podcaster in the next Smash game, and it's you. What is your final Smash?
My final Smash, maybe my final Smash would be taking a picture of a plushie in a Japanese game store, because that's what I do a lot on social media. I'm pretty sure like 1/3 or 1/2 of my social media posts are just me taking pictures of plushies that are like sitting around. Either that, or maybe like my microphone cord getting disconnected, which it often likes to do. And then the cord could like swing around the stage and hit people. That's probably the most accurate to my personal experience.
That's good. We've got some flexibility there for Sakurai to work with. Fantastic. Well, thank you very much for that overview of your podcast, your life in Tokyo, and your sort of history with Nintendo. I think we'll take a short break now, and when we come back, we are going to talk all about Nintendo's gaming summer. We are back from the break, and I am here with Mono from Tokyo Game Life, and we are going to talk all about Nintendo's gaming summer. And this starts with the 2026 remake of Star Fox 64, developed by VLN Studios and published by Nintendo. And what is your relationship with the original game and with the series as a whole?
Yeah, I love the original game. I got it when it came out in 1997, I believe for Christmas. It was one of my big Christmas gifts. And when I played it, I definitely thought this is one of the best games of all time. It like very quickly entered my pantheon of Nintendo games or games in general. At that time, what was my number one game in 1997? I don't even know. I guess Super Mario World, but maybe number two was possibly Star Fox 64. So I was a huge fan of Star Fox 64 when it came out. And my relationship with the franchise, I've definitely played every Star Fox game since then, except Zero. I did skip Zero. But even going from like Star Fox 64 to the next one was like Adventures. And like, this is not Star Fox 64. And then we got Assault, which was, a quote unquote return the form. But I also not a big fan of Assault. There are 10 missions in that game and 6 of them are on foot. And that's not what I want for my Star Fox. Command came out on DS, which is kind of a compromised, vision of Star Fox, but it is an interesting game. And a lot of the ideas in that game are really smart and really interesting. But yeah, then they did the remake and then they did Zero. So I kind of fell out of love with the franchise. But yeah, with NSO and, the virtual console, I did try out the previous games like Star Fox on SNES. And that one's a little hard to go back to after you've played the 64 version, just the frame rate alone. But it was cool to try out Star Fox 2 when that came out as just a historical oddity.
What was your reaction to the announcement of the remake? Like, were you surprised, excited, disappointed?
Well, when they first showed Fox is going to be the Mario movie, then gears started to turn, and I'm like, okay, well, they're not doing this for no reason. And sure enough, like maybe 2 seconds after, people were saying, like rumor mongers, some true, some not true, were saying Star Fox game is coming, Star Fox game is coming. So that's something I was definitely waiting for. And when they announced it, the one thing I didn't want was a Star Fox 64 remake. Please do not make a Star Fox 64 remake again. And then they come out and they're like, we're remaking Star Fox 64. I'm like, oh, that's such a hugely deflating announcement. And also I dislike the art style, what they went with. So it was like a double whammy of kind of disappointment. But, any sort of Star Fox coming back, I kind of got to support it. And when you're playing it, that we'll get into is that, yeah, I understand why they did this. And it is better than it it is better than my fear. Like, again, it's an announcement that maybe doesn't rock your socks, but when you're in the game, you feel relieved and you're like, okay, I'm back in the saddle. It is a great version of the game. I would prefer a brand new Star Fox game, but we got to start somewhere.
It is funny that a series that only really has one entry that could count as beloved, that most people fell out of love with, and really it's Star Fox 64 is the only one that really sold. It's interesting that a series with only one game that hit still has sort of really captures people's imagination and can still support this level of announcement. So broadly, like, what is your reaction to the 2026 remake? Did you enjoy it, and does it hold up?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the remake. And because it really is just a classic game. The level design is so strong. Every single level is totally different from each other. And the kind of like proto-roguelike progression method is really, even today, it makes me realize that, man, this was so unique at the time. In that what you do in the level really affects on how you progress. And a lot of things are really obscure. Like now, of course, everyone knows you got to go under the arches in the first level if you want to get to the quote unquote hard route. But as a kid, that definitely took me more than a few like tries or even times to realize that you could even do that. Even though Falco does tell you, he hints towards it, but I didn't really understand, the progression system. And it's also very interesting in that it kind of reflects on your failures as well. Like if you mess up the mission, then you're like hauled off to a different part of the solar system. So the way it's so reactive to how you play is so interesting. And yet the controls and everything are just fantastic. And this time I really appreciated it as kind of a score tech game. Here I really, because as a kid, I thought Star Fox 64 was like really, really hard. It took me a long time to wipe out Brain Andros or even get to Brain Andros. Like so many times, Slippy's going down, Peppy's going down. I'm very lucky if I have any teammates on Venom. This time, I've improved my gaming over the past 19 years or so. So it wasn't really that hard. So I became more interested in doing the score attack and really taking advantage of the score system, which I really didn't do as a kid. And so understanding that, okay, using the charge shots to get extra points, or, okay, this flurry of enemies comes here, you got to shoot it at them at this point. And I got really into the medal system and trying to master everything. So it is kind of, now that I'm older, I have a better appreciation for the depth that the game has. And they also added the multiplayer, which is definitely more fun than I thought it would be. It's like an interesting take on dogfighting. And yeah, that's something they could definitely expand to in the future. I don't know how active it will be in the future. Like even now, can you get, how many people are playing the multiplayer Star Fox right now, even like a month after launch? I don't know, but at least there's bots. So you can always mess around with that. I am glad that there's a multiplayer mode with bots that probably is not in too many games these days. So I was really pleased by the Star Fox 64 remake. It really is just a classic game. And it holds up today. And if you've never played Star Fox 64 and you played this game for the first time, I think you will be impressed by just how smart the design is and its unique progression system and all the different things you can do in terms of if you really want to master the game. It's not easy, so you got to get back in there and try your best.
You've touched on a load of things there that I want to come back to and expand on a little bit. But we have had very similar experiences with both the original game and this remake. So the first game, I remember playing that for what feels like hundreds of hours, and it very well may have been. But I would just play through through every route. And I had no idea there was even a medal system in that game. So when I found out about there being medals tied to your score in the remake, that was a genuine surprise to me. And that has been what has kept me going back to this one, as well as what you touched on there, how good it feels to play. The feel of the ship, just shooting your lasers, the rumble. Everything about it it feels so finely tuned. It's this just a very, very tightly focused, well engineered like game engine that absolutely holds up, which really surprised me. I expected it to feel sort of outdated, old, janky, but it still feels really good, snappy. it has that, yeah, like you say, this sort of arcade score chasing finesse to it, and that proto roguelike structure. It feels modern. It's a rail shooter, which is an old fashioned genre, but with this structure that it has, it doesn't feel outdated. And yes, what I've got most from this is the replay value, is going for the medals, getting the scores, which in some cases I've found incredibly hard. Aquas is about 100 times worse than I remember it. That's the actual worst water level that Nintendo have ever made. Like anyone with opinions about the water temple in Ocarina of Time, I direct them to trying to get the expert medal on Aquas. That's a truly evil level. And yes, you touched on the multiplayer there, and yeah, I kind of wanted to come to the like the additions that they've made to the remake. And you've got the challenge modes, and you've got the multiplayer. So, do you think that these additions are worthwhile? Do they sort of justify the decision to produce this remake?
Yeah, I think so, and I think the main reason for justifying the remake is that they want to bring Star Fox back in some capacity. They want to revive this franchise, and they kind of went with the easiest and most like basic route is let's just play the hits again. But I do think the additions are really interesting, the multiplayer mode especially, and I also like the data log where you have all this lore about the world of Star Fox, and I can definitely see somebody playing this game for the first time ever and becoming really interested in Star Fox, because a lot of people were really reacting to a lot of the lore that was always there, but it was kind of hidden in the back of like a Japanese like instruction manual or a guide that nobody can know about. Like the one that everyone kind of like pulled out or was shocked by is that like James McCloud took out an 80-year loan on the Great Fox, and so Star Fox has to like still pay that off. But that is not like a new like factoid that they made it for this game. That's been in Star Fox lore for forever. So it's cool to have this really clean, like this is the world of Star Fox section where you can refer to everything. And so that is kind of like that's not something you put on the back of the box, but once you kind of dig into it and fiddle around with it, it is a really smart and cool addition. And so I just think, and also, the challenge mode that they added, you could really spend your entire time only in the challenge mode. If you've played the mission, the campaign so many times, the challenge mode really makes you master the level and really makes you understand every aspect of the level. And so I think with the challenge mode, with the multiplayer, with the campaign, you definitely get your money's worth.
Lastly, with Star Fox, because we have a lot of other stuff to talk about, so I think we'll move on from Star Fox now. But I think the most interesting question to ask about the remake is kind of why. Like, why remake this particular game? Why now? And kind of in the broader sense, like, why at all? Like, if there is a long-term plan, what do you think that is?
Yeah, why now? Like Miyamoto said, because he was going to be in the Mario movie, so we decided to make a Star Fox game. I love Miyamoto, but like his memory or the way he says how things happen is not 100% accurate as has been proven. But I can definitely see, there is synergy between, okay, we've got a new movie coming out. Somebody somewhere said the word Star Fox. And then from that, they're like, okay, let's try to synergize it a little bit. And I think they just want to, because I always felt like if the game did not come out on the Switch or the franchise did not appear on the Switch, it's gone forever, because the Switch is like Nintendo's most successful console, the highest selling console in Japanese history. And so if it's not there, it's never coming back. But they did put the effort to bring Star Fox back. And so they thought, well, this is the best chance we're going to have to revive this series. We've got $1 billion movie. They're going to see Fox McCloud in there. Even though, he is in Smash Brothers. He is very like a prominent Smash character, I would say. So many people do know of him. He wasn't solely from the quote unquote Mario movie. So I just think the timing is just perfect to bring out Star Fox 64 or Star Fox Switch 2. And as for why another 64 remake, again, I think they just want to like have a guaranteed hit. They know what works. They know what game is great. And that's Star Fox 64. And I also think, okay, they've done this so many times before where a company makes a remake and then they make a real deal game. We saw it with Grezzo. They made mini Zelda remakes, and then they made Echoes of Wisdom, and Mercury Steam made Samus Returns, the second Metroid on the Game Boy. remake, and then they made Metroid Dread. And I think that's what's going to happen here is that Velen Studios, their next game, if it's not like some small project, will be a new Star Fox game.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think that's nailed on. I don't think we'll see it for a couple of years, but I think that's definitely going to happen. Hopefully they will learn the mistakes of the franchise in the past, and they won't necessarily stray too far from this template. I think like a new Star Fox game with a new set of levels with this structure, and add some more stuff that I'm not going to speculate on because I'm not a game developer. They're the smart people. They can come up with the innovative things. But I think that's just kind of a guaranteed winner. Like keep this engine, these mechanics, and that will be fantastic. I think there is a case to be made that this is a good example of a form of game preservation. You have these like beloved classic games that are kind of perfect examples of what they are and what they did at the time, that are kind of rendered inaccessible for some people who are with some justification turned off by sort of old controls or old art styles. I think there's definitely a place for games like that to be remade in this style, like a high spec remake with a few a few additions, like the cutscenes in particular really stood out to me. Like bringing it forward onto modern hardware, I think is a kind of valid form of game preservation. There's no reason why something as like kind of perfectly tuned as Star Fox 64 should be stuck as Star Fox 64. And I think the remake kind of validates that. And it'll be very interesting to see if I'm saying the same thing after the Ocarina of Time remake comes out. But we may come to that later. So moving on, we will jump ahead to a game that you have covered on your podcast recently, and that is Splatoon Raiders. Splatoon Raiders is a single-player focused spin-off game from the main Splatoon series, developed in-house by Nintendo EPD5. It follows the single-player modes of 2 and 3 and their respective DLCs, the Octo Expansion and Side Order. Now, my understanding from listening to your show is that you are a bit of a Splatoon guy. What's your history with the series, and what appeals to you about it?
Yeah, I've been on the Splatoon train ever since the Wii U. Like, I played the Splatoon 1 test fire or the demo or whatever it was called way back in the day, and I got really into it. And so, yeah, I had Splatoon 1, Splatoon 2, Splatoon 3, and now Splatoon Raiders. So, yeah, and I think it's been getting better and better with each iteration. Like the first one on Wii U, I had a lot of fun with it. And then on Splatoon 2, I got really into it. And then Splatoon 3 was like, it's big. Okay, this is like a borderline masterpiece is how I felt about that game in terms of like the sheer amount of content and how they really refined the gameplay systems and everything. So yeah, Splatoon has definitely gone up into the upper pantheon of Nintendo IPs for me.
It has a reputation sort of built on multiplayer, but there are actually plenty of single-player experiences in the series. What are your favourites and why?
Yeah, I think the campaigns for all three Splatoon games are really excellent and really underrated. They're pretty lengthy as well. I want to say the Splatoon 3 single-player mode maybe took 10 hours, and maybe you could do even more if you really want to 100% it. In terms of the best single-player content, I think I got to give to Side Order. Not Side Order, the Octo expansion for Splatoon 2. Those levels were so original and so interesting. And I guess, quote unquote, spoilers, is that the last segment or the last fourth of the game basically turns into Metal Gear Solid, where you're kind of infiltrating this big base and you're dodging lasers and all this other really crazy and fun stuff. And the aesthetic totally changes. And so they got really creative with the Octo level. And it is free on NSO. If you are an NSO, maybe expansion pack subscriber, you do have Octo expansion for free if you own Splatoon 2. So I definitely highly recommend listeners check that out.
Oh my God, I think you've just sold Splatoon 2 to me. I've never played 2 and I've never played the Octo expansion.
Oh, okay.
It turning into Metal Gear Solid sounds incredible. So on to Splatoon Raiders. What are your overall thoughts on the game? And how far along with it are you?
How far along is a good question. I'm not sure because I don't know how long the game is. Some people say it's only about, 10 to 15 hours, they say, to clear it. I haven't played that much yet. I've cleared out a lot of the islands. And I've done 2 of the big bosses. I don't know how many of those giant bosses there are, but the two of like they have a special cutscene type of bosses. I cleared those out.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've been really enjoying it. It is basically a quote unquote looter shooter, but in the Splatoon world. And it is a very Nintendo-ified version of a looter shooter in that it's pretty streamlined, but they also have a lot of fun with like the upgrade system, and they make it both simple, but also pretty deep. And I think the thing that really sticks out to me is just how snappy it is. A treasure raid takes like 5 minutes, sometimes even less. There are some missions that are like 3 minutes long. And even the longer ones are like 7, 8 minutes. And so you're really going in and out, in and out, in and out over and over and over again. And you're constantly unlocking new things. So it does have that like, one more raid type of flow to it that I think is really appropriate for Splatoon, since in the multiplayer matches, those are pretty short as well. Like a turf war battle is 3 minutes, and like loading into the game and getting out of it takes maybe less than 5 minutes. So that they have, interestingly enough, they've kept kind of the flow of the multiplayer game in this single player adventure.
That's a good way of looking at it, yeah. I think I can confirm there are 3 of those mythic salmons that you mentioned earlier. So does this gameplay loop and structure work for the Splatoon mechanics for you?
Yeah, it's interesting, and it doesn't really translate everything that I kind of enjoy about Splatoon into this game, because Splatoon is really great for like the traversal, how you traverse through the map, the extremely unique system where you're going, into the ink, and especially the single player modes in the other games. They have a lot of really interesting like platforming challenges, and they also integrate both the battle segments and the platforming in a really smart way. Here, they don't really do that. There aren't really any sort of platforming challenges in a typical treasure raid. It is kind of like a series of battle arenas. There are these sampler dungeons, which are more akin to the missions you would find in the single player Splatoon parts of the game. And yeah, I really do enjoy those, but they are very segmented from your typical treasure raid. They haven't really merged them yet. I don't know if they ever do. It really is just like go in and like attack and then go out. You're not really thinking about the level design, which is pretty different from, a typical Splatoon game.
Since I pitched you this episode, I was kind of cool on Splatoon Raiders at the time, and just between then and now, I've kind of turned around on it, and we'll sort of get into that a little bit. But yeah, the sampler dungeons you talked about there, some of those they kind of match the Splatoon 3 single player campaign for me in terms of like sort of testing your platforming skills in interesting ways. Without spoiling too much, I've just done like a really, really cool one where it puts you in a maze with no weapons and a particular enemy who reduces the space in that maze quite effectively. Ooh. That's really cool. That was a really cool like test and very different to everything else. So that's been good to discover as I've played more of the game, because my initial impressions were that it felt a bit shallow, and I wasn't really sure why I was earning kind of all the things that I'm earning. But yeah, we'll come on to that in a bit. So I think what would be good to talk about is the various level types. You've touched on like the treasure hunts, and there's like shard mining, which is similar. I think my favorite are the buried ruins, which are the ones where you go down multiple sub-levels, because those are the ones that force you to think most about what tank you're going to use and what gadgets you're going to use. And I think that's been the thing that's really hooked me into the game when I was cooler on it. So I think let's talk about the gadgets. For you, do they work better as a buff or perk system than the chips in side order? How do you feel about them? And do you have any particular favorites?
Yeah, the chips in side order were a bit more subtle in that you're kind of gradually building up your build, so to speak. It's like, do I want to focus on making the ink more damaging? Do I want to focus on like my shooting range for my weapon? And so you're doing like more incremental changes here. You're doing more incremental changes in side order in terms of your palette. But here the gadgets. Yeah, at first I thought it's kind of weird that you're upgrading your side weapon and not your main weapon, because you can't really do a whole lot to your main weapon. You can make like its base attack go up, but you're not really attaching anything to it. The gadgets are the thing you are really min-maxing. And I thought that's such a strange thing to do. Because like imagine if like in Call of Duty you can't upgrade your gun, but you can upgrade your grenade. That's pretty much what they did with Splatoon Raiders. But I understand why they did it, because they want you to kind of change out your guns like every now and then. They want you to pick, different types of weapons. They don't want you to just stick with one. But the gadgets are a bit more static. And the way you can make them interesting is adding all these things to it. I like the splatter lights where they give you like a big ring of. Actually, I don't know what exactly I'm shooting out. I don't know if it's like, it looks like just a disc or something. But it's some sort of disc. And I recently got the buff where there's 2 layers of the discs. And I'm like, oh, okay. This is not just, a number has gone up. This is I now have a totally different range of attack. And they're pretty different from what you would find in the main series in the multiplayer modes, because your sub-weapons in multiplayer, it's oftentimes like some sort of grenade or some sort of buff that you just kind of like throw out there and you pray that maybe somebody will walk into and die. Here, you can be a lot more tactical with when you use them. And since it relies on a cooldown system as opposed to your ink, that is also very different for Splatoon. And so far, I've had a lot of fun with all the different types of gadgets. There's a turret, they would definitely never allow that in the multiplayer mode. They would not let you plop down a turret. And the splatter lights is really fun. It kind of reminds me of Vampire Survivors a little bit, where you just have like a ring of something around you that nobody can get to you. And there's all these like fun jumps and dashes, and you can throw an axe, and you can throw like all these other crazy weapons. So I think the gadget system is one of those things that on paper, it doesn't sound so exciting, but when you're playing it, you do understand how vital it is to your survival.
I kind of felt for maybe the first 2/3 of the game that it was just a bit too. I don't know, the gadgets maybe felt overpowered. I felt like it was the whole experience was just like too sort of seamless. And I'm getting all of these things like flashing up, like saying, you've earned this, you've earned this, you've earned this. And it feels like just kind of one step removed from a mobile game. But it kind of gets away with it just on the like sheer force of its aesthetics. It's as I've got towards the end of the game when when the challenge is ramping up and it's forcing you to think in greater detail about your loadout. And it does encourage you to experiment and to not stick with anything, which I like. I appreciate that. And having the flexibility to change things and I never feel like if I switch that I'm switching to something that I don't like or something that I'm less capable with, because everything's powerful and everything's kind of easy to use. I'm kind of struggling because like a couple of days ago I was much cooler on it, and now I feel like I'm on the precipice of like really loving it. I think we'll come back to sort of the gadgets and the chaos that they can afford you in a bit. One kind of concern or one like issue I did have was kind of with the visual and the musical identity of the game. It has a tropical setting. And what works about this for you? And do you see any visual similarities to any other recent Nintendo games?
Yeah, it is kind of an extension of Salmon Run, which is very, industrial and grimy. And these are islands, but they're not quote unquote tropical islands. Well, I guess maybe they technically are, but they're very drab in their setting. And there are some interesting locales that you don't really see in the Splatooniverse. Like there's an icy area, there's a lava area, which, you're playing a Nintendo game. An ice world and a lava world are not exactly breaking brand new ground. But for Splatoon, it is. There's no lava level in any Splatoon game or like ice level as well. So to be in those environments is kind of interesting. But yeah, the aesthetic is a little, it doesn't really stand out a whole lot to me, to be honest, unless there's something like really crazy on down the line. And since they do kind of reuse the salmonids, which, we're very familiar with them. I would have preferred if they introduced a brand new enemy type, like they did with Side Order. They introduced the Jellytons, which are like these transparent black and white and red creatures that looked really awesome. And it gives it a totally different aesthetic from what we've seen before in Splatoon. Here it is kind of an enhancement of what we've seen before. So I think they could have been a little more original with that. But as somebody who's played a lot of Salmon Run, it is fun to see these remixes of these enemies that you've killed 1,000 times, but also more importantly, that have killed you 1,000 times. And some of them are a little easier. Like the fly fish, you can just shoot at the fly fish. And so it is very cathartic. I don't need to time my grenade into his stupid basket. I can just shoot him in the face and he will go away. So that kind of stuff is very cathartic.
With the salmonids, I quite like the design they've gone with for some of the like the seasoned ones they call them, and some of the crazier, more like really like quite grotesque like designs they've got. I like those. It's the kind of level designs that are a bit bland for me, and they don't really lean into levels being ice or fire. They don't really do much with those environmental sort of elements that they could, and that's like a bit disappointing. And because there's Like, this is an issue I had sort of early on in the game. There's just so many levels, and so many are kind of indistinguishable from each other.
Right.
So that's one issue that I haven't really reckoned with yet. And I noticed that in one of the Arthur developers, the concept art for Raiders shows off these much more like detailed and colourful environments than those actually included in the game. I guess that's probably like par for the course with concept art, but what they show in those with these, it's like a colourful water park and much more like elaborate structures around the islands just seems so much more vibrant than what is in the game. And the fact that the levels don't really have a lot of sort of secrets and are very linear is still sort of slightly disappointing to me, but I guess that I just need to kind of understand that's not what this game is. Right. This game is designed to be sort of this linear looter shooter. It's not like an open world exploration game, and I think like coming to terms with that has been kind of a part of like turning around on this. So with the music, Splatoon is a series kind of noted for its music. What do you think of the music in Raiders? Do you think it lives up to the highs of the previous games?
Yeah, again, it kind of like is inspired by like the Salmon Run music, where it sounds like a lot of like pots and pans like slapping together, and that's kind of the music here as well. So I think people who kind of go into it expecting the really fast-paced soundtrack or the really diverse like punk and ska and all this other genre mix, here it is like again the salmonid pot and pan style of like weird. I don't even know how to describe this, like industrial fish punk. If that makes sense. It is that style. So if you're not like a huge fan of that, I understand not really digging it. Yeah, again, so far, it is kind of like background music. I haven't really been hooked by any song, unlike, Splatoon 3, when you hear a song in Turf War, there'll be one that like really catches your ear and you're like, oh man, I got to look up this song later on YouTube. I haven't had that feeling so far this time around.
There's a couple of like quote unquote normal sounding songs that I found quite catchy, but a lot of the music is this quite discordant ambient stuff, and some of it's like intentionally quite unpleasant. It's designed to make you feel unsettled. I think that's why I heard kind of a lot of pushback about the music in it, which I don't agree with. I think some of the catchy stuff is great and lives up to the reputation that the series has, and that's this kind of like uncomfortable sounding stuff is very much in keeping with what the game is trying to do. I guess we should come on to talking about some like other unique things about Raiders, and that is kind of the emphasis on story and the multiplayer. Now, in that Arthur developer interview that I mentioned earlier, the team behind Splatoon Raiders talk about increasing the emphasis on the story and exploring deep cut more, and saying that they didn't really feel like they'd done that enough in Splatoon 3. Now, do you think that was successful in this game so far?
Yeah, I'm trying to think about what do I learn about deep cut here, and so far not a whole lot. Like I learned that they have some sort of maybe background that is not really explored a whole lot in the main game. So we're kind of, again, I'm not done with it yet, but it does seem to be digging into like their family history a little bit more. But otherwise, yeah, there is a mystery in terms of like what are the things we're finding, like what do these do, and I'm a little interested in that. But otherwise, yeah, I'm not learning something like revelatory about Deep Cut from here. But I do like hanging out with them. They are fun, a fun group of people to hang out with and see, and bring to your team. And I always bring Fry to my when I battle because she just has like the best special. And yeah, Fry is like,
really?
I would consider her to be like the third tier of the Deep Cut members. So to like spend more time with Fry is kind of fun.
Have you engaged much with the multiplayer? Have you like joined in any raids or had like any help on any? How do you think that works?
Yeah, I really enjoyed the multiplayer. It does have a almost PSO or Monster Hunter feel to it, where you get a group of guys and then you're going to do this mission together. And but again, it is in a very Nintendo way, in that it's kind of cumbersome to actually use, because if you volunteer your help, you're thrown into like a random mission or whatever. And then if you try to start a game, you can't do another one until 30 minutes or so. So it's not like you can play the entire game with other people, which I think would have been fun. So it's like this weird, it's like, oh, Nintendo really emphasized this is a single player game, but we added a really cool multiplayer. Oh, can we play it then? Oh, no, you're not allowed to play our cool multiplayer. Only certain situations. But yeah, it is fun. I would definitely like to see in the future, because I really love like Phantasy Star Online. So my number one wish is like Sega brings back Phantasy Star Online 1 and remaster that. But if they can't do that, then it would be interesting to see like a like an expanded version of this in the future that is more multiplayer focused. Because you could have like classes and stuff for your Splatoon guy. You could have like a charge, someone solely focused on charge shot, someone solely focused on like the bucket. And then you could get really granular with how you build that character. So maybe in the future, like a Diablo-esque or MMO-esque Splatoon game is in the cards.
At the time we are talking, Splatoon Raiders has an 81 on Metacritic, but with a 93 user score, which is the highest of any Nintendo game on the site. Why do you think this is? Why do you think this game has hit so hard?
Yeah, I think for one, I don't know what's going on with Metacritic, but none of the Splatoon games reviewed super well. They're all like 81, 82, which I learned recently, and that kind of blew my mind. Like, how do you give Splatoon 3 like an 8 out of 10? To me, that is like, if not a 10 out of 10, a borderline 10 out of 10. But I think Splatoon is like one of those series where if you don't get super deeply into it, you just play it and you're like, yeah, you're moving around, you're shooting, and you're splashing. It seems to have pretty good amount of content. Yes, it's good. I'll give it a 8 out of 10. But there's so much depth to the game, and there's so much content and so much interesting gameplay elements. Why does it speak to so many people? I just think, again, it's really addictive in that you're going in and out of these raids so quickly, and then you have all these cool weapons that you don't see in other video games, even in other shooters. Like, what shooter has like, I don't know, a bucket that you're throwing at people, or just like the charge shot, and like you have kind of like a bazooka and all this other like really interesting weapons that you don't see in too many other first or third person shooters. And so
an umbrella.
Yeah, an umbrella, exactly. So like there's no other game really like it. And I also think it's kind of maybe being reversed Metacritic bombed. Because if you do look at what are the like top 10 games on Metacritic, like number one, or like in terms of user review, number one is like Clear Obscure, which, you know, makes sense. But number 5 is like Corey in the House on DS. So there might be some sort of like concentrated Splatoon fan base, like number boosting here, but I think a lot of people are enjoying it.
So I think like single player Splatoon rests on the tension between being overwhelmed in close quarters and your ability to find like creative or spectacular ways out of that. Now in Splatoon Raiders, the enemies and the challenge is scaled up, and the gadgets are a system designed to empower the player to match this. They are this kind of flexible tool, and the experimentation, expression, and the chaos that they allow is the big success of the game. How do you feel about that versus the idea that there is kind of a shallowness to it, where you're sort of like going in, shooting, getting lots of like perks and rewards, and not necessarily knowing like why you've got this, like suddenly got this really powerful weapon versus why you got nothing? Like, how do you feel about sort of the game, overall? Like, do you push back on any of that?
Yeah, I think it is just the nature of a looter shooter in that you're going in, you're getting as much as you can, then you're kind of like sifting through what you got. Is any of this important? If yes, then you make numbers go up and upgrade your gear. If no, you just jump back into it. But I think that's good in that, you know, since these raids are so short, I'm trying to think, I've never played Destiny, so I don't know, like, how long is like a quote unquote Destiny raid or a Destiny mission? Part of me, or like a dungeon, I always think like a dungeon is like, I don't know, 40 minutes or an hour or something absurd like that. But here it is just so quick. So even if you finish one and, oh, actually, I can't even upgrade anything this time around, you don't feel like it's a waste. You're just like, okay, well, I got something and it'll pay off eventually. So let's just get back into it. Let's try something else. So I think if you dislike the, oh, here's just a bunch of junk and like it'll be important later, trust me, then maybe you won't like gel with its flow. But I just think the gameplay is really strong. So I always just like going in there and just shooting them for the sake of shooting them. I don't really care. Early on, you kind of don't care about what you get because you're just getting stuff. And you're like, okay, well, I'll just keep getting enough stuff until the exclamation mark pops up, and then I can upgrade things. And then I'll keep doing this flow. And this type of game is like, keep doing the same thing over and over again until you beat the story, or until you burn yourself out, or until you become the master of Splatoon Raiders and you've got a level 100 dude and crazy plus 100 gear or whatever.
That's Splatoon Raiders. We will now take another quick break, and in our last part, we will come on to talking about Rhythm Heaven Groove. So the last game we'll cover in our look at this Nintendo Summer is the latest entry in the Rhythm Heaven series, Rhythm Heaven Groove, co-developed by Nintendo and Sunku's studio TNX. So you have actually covered Rhythm Heaven, Groove, and the series as a whole in detail on your most recent episode. So if you wouldn't mind recapping for the listeners here, what is your experience with the series? And do you have a favourite game in the series, and why?
Yeah, for me, I wouldn't consider myself to be a Rhythm Heaven diehard, because I really played the DS game, as most people did. That was his big Western debut. Played the DS game and I loved it. And then I played some of Fever as well, and I didn't pick up the 3DS game actually. So it's been quite a while since I got really into like Rhythm Heaven at all. So it does feel like kind of a homecoming for me. But I really am loving this the new game, Rhythm Heaven Groove.
What would you say sets Rhythm Heaven Groove and the series as a whole apart from other rhythm games?
I think when you think of a rhythm game, you're thinking of, okay, circles go in this other circle and you got to time the circle together. Or there's a bunch of lines and you got to time all the lines, you got to hold the button. Here, Rhythm Heaven, they kind of tell a story in each mission. And they tell the story through the rhythm, which I think is a really smart and unique way to like show people what to do or how to engage and make it interesting, as opposed to just, here's like 400 circles or triangles coming up to the screen and you got to time your presses each one. It is telling like a story, and you really do care about the characters. And for example, the backup dancers, you care about the singer, you care about the backup dancers, what they're doing, how they react to things. So I think the strength of Rhythm Heaven is that it really goes out of the box in terms of how you play the game. It's so less focused on the timing or the accuracy, in terms of there's not like a scoring system of like, there's not like awesome, great, good, okay. It is just like great, not great. It's like that, that more binary, which I think is interesting.
So I guess broadly, what do you think of the game? Does it hold up to the DS one?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the DS one, but I think this one is, probably clears the DS game just in terms of the sheer amount of content and the different variety of how you interact with the game. There's a lot of D-pad inputs, which I felt like, oh, I'm not going to be able to do this. I can only press A. That's the maximum of my mental capacity, is solely just pressing A. But you do get better at it over time. And just all the missions and the settings are just so creative, and the music is fantastic as well. So I would definitely put this above the DS game, although I do like the touch controls of the DS game. So that is really unique. And I still think you can go back to the DS game and have a great time, because again, though that music is also great, and the interesting input method is really unique.
How have you engaged with the game? Like, how far have you gone with it? And are you going for medals? Are you going for perfects? Like, how do you engage with a game like Rhythm Heaven?
Yeah, since I've done all the quote unquote missions, I am trying to get the medals. Sometimes, like, I kind of want to push the perfects to the side. Every now and then it will come up and say, you can try a perfect for this time. And I'm like, not yet. I have a few perfects for the ones I really love, but some of them I'm like, I'm not ready for the perfect yet. I still want to get the medals. So I'm mostly focusing on the front side, the first page of missions. The flip side, I think I have maybe a few medals, and by few, I mean like 2 on the flip side. The front side, I'm like, let me focus my energy on the front side. Try to get the medals for, probably can't do everything, to be honest, because some of them I just can't wrap my brain around. But a lot of them, I try to do as many as possible. I'm trying to get the medal on the last one, the Auto song, the Remix 8. And I feel like I'm so close. I'm so close to getting the medal on this one, but I just got to keep going with it. And I feel like, again, going back to kind of Star Fox again, you could very easily clear both Star Fox and Rhythm Heaven, but the real joy comes from trying to master it. So I have a lot of appreciation for this game now that I'm really trying to dig deep and trying to get as many medals and perfects as possible.
Yeah, that is, again, absolutely something about this game that I didn't expect to hit with me that really has. I expected to sort of maybe finish the missions, but probably not, because I'm not very good at rhythm games and I get frustrated with them. But I think that speaks to the sort of the charm and the accessibility of Rhythm Heaven, that I have kept going back, and I have kept going back whilst playing these other things. Rhythm Heaven like keeps pulling me back. I think I've got all the medals up to maybe like the 6th block of levels. I haven't unlocked the flip side yet. But I do keep going back, and that is like a real testament to the charm of this game and the series. What about the additional modes? Have you messed around with Beat Spell, which is the single-player RPG mode, or the multiplayer at all? If so, do you think these sort of enhance this entry in the series?
I haven't tried the multiplayer yet, but I have tried Beat Spell, which is a really interesting take on both kind of a JRPG and also a rhythm game, I think the method of you have to kind of time your spells is super interesting. I think this could be really expanded into a full game, because I really do love that the effectiveness and what type of magic you do depends on your input method. I don't know if you ever played the game called Magica, but
No.
Magica it was a huge hit like 15 years ago. I wonder, is there a Magica 3? I think it stopped at 2, but it was one of those games where like everybody on Steam owned this game. Once upon a time when they limited who could put games on Steam, Magica was like a big kind of like cult hit on Steam because it's like or I don't know if you ever play like Dota as well, Dota 2. There's a character named Invoker. And the way you do your attacks, it's not by like, pressing A. You got to like input like this really complicated method, like up, down, left, right, like R, T, V, and like hold this button. It's this extremely complicated method to do spells in like Magica and also Invoker. And I thought that's such a really interesting way to portray magic in a video game, because oftentimes when you're portraying magic, you just pick it from the menu and you're throwing the fireball. But having to do like a very specific like button input or like a method of how you input the button is really cool. And I think you could definitely flesh this out into a full game. But it does really strain your arm, because if they have like a lot of HP, you're like doing like B, B, A, B, A, B, B, A.
Yeah.
And like you're trying to attack and heal at the same time. Your forearm will get stressed out. So if they do make a full game of this, maybe make it a little slower or a little easier.
I completely agree. I would love to see this fleshed out into a whole game. I'm not the biggest like turn-based combat fan, and there's plenty of games that use sort of button combos to handle that kind of system. I think this is just so much better and so much more fun than that. Like having it on a rhythm is just like it's much more engaging. I found, and yeah, I've played through that. That's really fun. Would like to see more of that. I guess with Rhythm Heaven Groove, it feels kind of academic to even to kind of talk about it, because it's a Rhythm Heaven game. It's going to be a collection of rhythm-based mini games. It is what it is. And it will always be sort of like perfect in what it is aiming for, because it's a smaller scope game. It is what it is, and it will always be that. So I think that kind of makes it more like an interesting academic exercise to try and find ways that it could be improved. Like, is there anything that you didn't like about the game? Is there anything you think could have been handled better?
What could it be handled better? That's kind of a hard question. I'm trying to think what did they mess up? It's hard to mess up a game where you just kind of press A to the rhythm. I think the only thing they could have messed up is like, if the songs are bad or if the missions were boring. But I would say the majority of them are like really great. There's a few I am not a big fan of, like the can smashing game. I'm not like a huge fan of that one. But a lot of them really do stand out, and a lot of them are really excellent. So I think, they did an excellent job. It's so content rich. There's so much you can do here. Again, there is the risk of like, I just do every mission once and then I never play it again. But the game does a great job in encouraging you to keep playing with its scoring system, with the medals, with the perfects. So I think it is a very deep and content-rich game. I'm not like a hardcore fan of the series. So some people, they might really be nostalgic for a certain song or a certain method or like type of music that was really emphasized in like the past versions. But for me, I think this could this is probably the best Rhythm Heaven, because there's just, more of it.
So the only things that stood out to me were the art style in some of the mini games. This is a budget game, but some of those mini games look very budget. Some are very like charming and pretty and colourful, and then there's ones like the robot catching the pudding game, which I think is like quite a spectacularly ugly like character sprite, quite off-putting. And also the main menu, I think, is one of the most strangely barren and ugly kind of main menus I've ever seen. It's so odd for such a colourful and vibrant game. And yeah, those are really kind of the only things that stood out to me. Really, kind of any discussion of Rhythm Heaven isn't complete without talking about the mini games and the songs, because those are the experience. So if you can, what are your favourite 3 mini games in Rhythm Heaven Groove? And also, were there any standouts in terms of sort of like rage-inducing difficulty?
Favorite ones. I think my number one favorite is probably Backup Dancers, where you are going like left and right and elbowing people in the face. Just the fact that you can elbow someone in the face, that is such a smart way to show that you're messing up. And that is just a really great one. What are some other like really good ones? I like the frog one. And that one just the song feels like this could only be written for a frog. If this was anything else, it wouldn't make any sense. This is the perfect song for a frog. And I do like Remix 8, Otto's song. Otto, who is a big Japanese pop star. Even though it is like remixing a bunch of different like past missions, I think the way the song is laid out and the way they time everything is a really great quote unquote final boss of the front side. So I think maybe those three are my favorites so far. Although there's a lot of great ones. The Moon one, I really love, even though I'm not that good at it. But that's such like a creative, like that moon is iconic to me now. That is like maybe one of these standout characters from this game is that weird moon. I still need to practice with it though, because you can get really messed up and then like lose your rhythm pretty easily. But yeah. I do appreciate that moon.
That moon is the true villain of this game.
Oh, yeah.
And I guess, do you have any particular favorite songs in this game? And there is a lot.
Yeah.
There is a lot of music in this game.
Yeah. Like I said before, I really do enjoy Otto's song. And I like the backup dancer song as well. That's the more J-pop song. And yeah, the frog song is really great. And what are some other great just songs? I'm trying to think about what would I listen to when I'm not playing the game? Like if I just throw up on YouTube. Remix 2 is a good one. That's a bit slower paced. Oh, sorry. I think Remix 2 is like, Hot Spike, I think is Remix 2, which is Sunku's daughter. And yeah, she has a really interesting voice. And what are some other great songs? I kind of like the soccer one, because I think the timing of that one is really excellent in terms of every time you do it, it's like really fun. They perfected what would be the most fun moment in the song to kick the ball. And I also really love the is it called Disco Dog? I forgot the name. Like the dog frisbee.
Disc Dog.
Disc Dog. Okay, Disc Dog. Not Disco Dog, although it is maybe some disco-esque song.
It kind of is. Yeah, it should be called Disco Dog.
Yeah, that song is also really good. And I'm catching myself like nodding my head to the counting, because I guess the timing of me nodding my head and putting it back is like perfect with how the game wants you to count. So I'm like nodding like 1, 2, 3, and then on 7, that's when I press A. So that one's like I'm being really interactive with that song, and that's one I would throw on just on YouTube.
Yeah, Remix 2 is one that stood out to me. It's got a kind of like city pop influence to it, and because it's a bit like calmer and slower paced, it stands out amongst the sort of the high energy of everything else. There is so much in this game, and that is like a sign of like what a surprisingly deep experience it is, and it's one that people can keep coming back to. It makes difficulty approachable. I think that's kind of like, for me, that's kind of the great success of Rhythm Heaven Groove. So that is all the games for the Nintendo Summer. We will take one last quick break, and then we will come back to talk about what does this Nintendo Summer say about Nintendo. We are back from the break one last time, and I am here with Mono from Tokyo Game Life. And now we're going to talk all about what does this summer of Nintendo games say about Nintendo. So we've had a remake of a 30-year-old rail shooter, a single-player spin-off game, and a collection of rhythm minigames, all at relatively low prices. Now, on paper, these read as smaller scoped games that might be released to support premium titles such as 3D Mario or 3D Zelda, but as it stands, these games and games like them are currently the bedrock of the Switch 2 lineup. Now, what are your takeaways from this summer lineup of games? How do you feel about so many games being released in such a short space of time?
Yeah, it is very, I think, indicative of the Switch 2's kind of release schedule in terms of they are not playing the hits. They're zagging when you think they're going to zig. Like, okay, what's the safest like Switch 2 like first year? You've got Mario Kart, you've got Mario, maybe you've got, I don't know, 3D Zelda, you've got Splatoon 4 maybe. But instead they're going all these different like ways. They did Kirby Air Riders instead of Smash, they did Donkey Kong instead of Mario, and they're really digging into their catalog because they are showing people that, okay, we don't need to just solely rely on our tentpoles. And especially since game development is taking such a long time, having these chances to put out these quote unquote smaller titles these like mid-budget or double A titles is really advantageous to Nintendo because we got what, 3 full games in a like 40-day span? That is unheard of. I'm trying to think, what games did Sony put out this year? They've got Saros in terms of publishing. Maybe that's it. Microsoft, they had Forza Horizon 6. But maybe there's another one. Or I guess Halo just came out. Halo campaign evolved. And yeah, I'm sure like Saros and Forza and Halo, I'm sure those are great games, but those are 3 games across 2 consoles. Nintendo is like pumping out a game a month, sometimes even more than a game a month, which is like, that's Nintendo's strong suit, is that they have their internal pipeline. They have their internal EPD teams. They have their partners like Intelligent Systems, HAL, Game Freak. And then they are really smart in utilizing a lot of smaller developers like Velen Studios, Velen Studios and like Good Feel and like Grezzo, companies you wouldn't really on paper say like, oh, they got to make this game. This would be the perfect matchup. But they really care about consistency over everything else.
I came back to an investor Q&A that happened last year, and a quote that went around from Furukawa from that was him talking about the need to react to rising costs of game development by spending less time and money on development. And I think what we're seeing here is kind of the outcome of that.
Yeah.
Nintendo are like scoping their games smaller. They're spending less time developing them and presumably less money, still retaining, I think, the innovation that they are noted for. Some people may push back on that. But I think all of these games that we've seen in the last year have all had something about them that still has that kind of Nintendo kind of flavor, feeling about it. I think of Yoshi and the Mysterious Book, which is, I've only played a demo of that. I'm probably not going to play the full game, but that is a very different approach to making a platform. And you couple that up with Splatoon Raiders and Star Fox and Rhythm Heaven Groove, and you've got these games that have huge appeal for a broad audience, all of which have like tons of replay value and all very different, all serving to create this robust lineup of platform exclusives. I think that's definitely like a valid and worthwhile approach that you like don't see in any other company.
Right.
It's completely uncommon. It's completely unheard of.
Yeah.
For like any platform holder in any era. So do you think this approach, like sort of smaller projects, regular release cadence, high replay value, like is a successful one? And do you think it's one that they can maintain?
Yeah, I think if you're going from the perspective of, I want to play something on my Switch too, Nintendo is providing that. You mentioned Furukawa's like comment about game development is only getting more expensive and longer. So we need to have some sort of method to give smaller experiences out there to continue our consistency, which was like the Switch's like a big advantage, is that Nintendo constantly put out like a game a month is kind of insane if you want to think about it. Like in this modern, like what company is even coming close to that? Or what game publisher is even coming close to that? I know Sony, like they will publish a lot of games, but they don't feel like, oh, this is a Sony title. Like they published, what was it called? Last Soul Aside, which is like some sort of like Korean, like sword slinging Dark Souls game. And
I've not even heard of that.
They also published like Rise of the Ronin from Koei Tecmo. Okay. But like games like that, they don't feel like they have Sony's stamp on it. But Nintendo's games, even if they're just publishing it and if it's being handled by an external company, you know, their IPs are the strongest IPs in gaming, period. So they have that advantage. And yeah, I do like how experimental they are. The Nintendo Switch 2 editions, which are kind of hit and miss in terms of, I think the ones I played, they are pretty good actually. But the size of the content could be anything from, here's a huge campaign that you're going to spend 10, 15 hours on to, okay, you have a new hat and then the resolution is better. That's it. But I do like that this, okay, you never really know what you're going to get. Oh, Kirby got a DLC expansion pass that you can play for, I don't know, 5 hours or so. And then, okay, here's now a $40 or $50 game that you can check out. Oh, here's our big tentpole $60 or I guess now $70 game. So I do like that Nintendo is not relying solely on their big tentpoles. There is that subset of Nintendo fan who is like a Mario, Zelda, Smash, or bust type of person. They only play really those. And I get the frustration if you are that type of gamer. And Nintendo has not put out a new Mario, a new Zelda, or a new Smash, like in year one, which they did for the Switch in year one, or like 1 year and a half. So I do understand that frustration, but I also think like, yeah, those games are coming, but in the meantime, they're really digging deep into their IP catalog. We've got Star Fox back, we've got Rhythm Heaven back, Tomodachi Life came back, and that's a huge hit. So they are not afraid to like dust off the old IP catalog and see what can we bring back for a brand new audience.
What strikes me is I feel people need to just possibly be a bit more reasonable in reacting to what Nintendo have released over the last year. No, there is no 3D Mario, no 3D Zelda. There probably won't be for a while. And I want those things as well. But those things take a lot of time. When the president of Nintendo says something about development times and costs, I think we should all listen. And I think what Furukawa said about the need to react to rising costs is very important for how we should be sort of interpreting what Nintendo released now and in the future. And I think we also need to be conscious of the fact that they are trying to sell a new console that probably is quite a hard sell for a casual audience. The Switch is like a huge success. They want to bring as many of those players over to the Switch 2 as possible. And when to the casual player, it just looks like the same. So how do you sell this thing that looks like what you've already got? Well, if you've got a huge lineup of Switch 2 exclusive games, looking at it from their perspective as a business, I think that's probably like part of their motivation for this approach. And for me, at least, it works. I think we've got like a year of good to great, and in some cases very interesting games that I think justify this approach that they've taken. So we're in the middle of it right now, but come winter, and we're looking back fondly at the summer months, or not so fondly, depending on how hot it gets in our respective countries. Which of these games do you think will come to mind? Which is the one that for you will most define this Nintendo summer?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think which game I like the most, and they're all like, it's hard to say. I don't know, because at one time Star Fox 64 was like the best game ever, and I still feel if I was making a top like 50 games list, I'm sure Star Fox 64 would be up there. I don't know if I would say like Rhythm Heaven Groove would be up there. What's the one that would define the summer? Yeah, Tomodachi Life is spring. That's definitely the one that defines the spring. I do want to kind of give it to Rhythm Heaven Groove because it is such as like a big comeback for the series, and it has like penetrated pop culture in such a way because they got like Ado, again, I've said her so many times, but she's like a huge like pop star in Japan. And they also have like a singer from like Fruit Zipper, which is another like kind of like a girl group here. So the fact that they really like went out and kind of like got some more mainstream attention to this game is really interesting. And yeah, it's getting really popular. It's very popular in Japan as well. Of course, well, you know, Splatoon is a major IP. That'll be the best selling out of all three of these games for sure. But I definitely think Rhythm Heaven Groove is really indicative of like never count an IP out because it'll come back.
There was never any guarantee that the franchise would return with Sunku's like health issues that he's had. So it's great that he has been able to like come back and make this game, and it's as good and well received as it is. So yeah, we'll pour one out for Rhythm Heaven Groove. So let's look back one last time, and then we'll look ahead. These games effectively close the first year and start the second of Switch 2. How do you rate the first year of Switch 2?
Yeah, I'm a big fan of the first year of Switch 2. I think in terms of, if we're going from like June to June, so ironically not counting the games we talked about, like the big standouts to me are Donkey Kong Bonanza, Kirby Air Riders, and Pokopia. Like DK and Pokopia are like 10 out of 10 games for me. And I loved Air Riders. That's like, maybe I should give it a 10 out of 10, but at least like a 9.5 out of 10. Those three are like the crown jewels of the Switch 2 system. But pretty much everything I played, I haven't been disappointed in anything so far. Although I have been more selective. I haven't picked up some games. I skipped Yoshi because I thought that game just looks like, you know, boring. But everyone's like, no, this was marketed wrong. Yoshi rules. And I'm like, man, I should have picked up Yoshi. I think if there's like a lull in my gaming, I definitely want to go back to Yoshi because people whose opinions I respect say Yoshi is legit and there's no other game like it. So I wanted to circle back to Yoshi, and I apologize to Yoshi for doubting him. But yeah, I'm really pleased with Switch 2's first year because it's so unpredictable. But there's always things to play, and I'm just a fan of like both the big tent poles and also the smaller titles. And they brought back stuff like Tomodachi Life. So really pleased with the Switch 2's first year. And the second year is also going to look exciting. And the third year, fourth year, we've got so much to look forward to, which is really exciting. We've got the 3D Mario to look forward to. We've got the quote unquote new 3D Zelda to look forward to. We've got like a new like the 2D Metroid to look forward to, Smash Brothers. Like there's so much to look forward to that I'm really excited about.
Yeah, exactly. They've filled out the first year with these sort of B tier franchises. And so we've got so much ahead. That's cause for optimism. So speaking of optimism, there will be a direct in September. So let's get way out ahead of the discourse cycle. Could you give me 3 realistic predictions and 3 wild pieces of speculation for the September direct?
Okay, realistic. I do think they're going to do the Zelda 40th anniversary. That's when they'll start that campaign. So we'll see Ocarina of Time, we'll see the Zelda trailer. I think there is one more Zelda game project. I'm not sure what it could be, but maybe it is some sort of smaller like multiplayer thing. I was always wondering why haven't they brought back 4 Swords in the Switch era? It seems like the perfect time. So I think there is some sort of smaller, maybe multiplayer project from Zelda that's coming out at least in the 6-month Zelda 40th anniversary span. So maybe not this year, but like early 2027. Other predictions. Well, maybe I shouldn't say this because it is a quote unquote leak, but there is like rumors that a 2D Metroid is coming. And I think that is very possible that it's the December game to line up with last year's December game, which was Metroid. And if it's from Mercury's team, I'm totally on board. And I'm trying to think about, because the calendar's already pretty full. You've got like October, you've got November will be Zelda. Like that's coming out November. I'll swear my life on it. And then December is like, I think Metroid. October is Nintendo Switch Sports. What's it called? Nintendo Switch Sports Resort. And then, September is Fire Emblem. You have the calendar kind of like filled out. But I do think like Pikmin 4, Nintendo Switch 2 edition, I want to say with a campaign, like a plus All of Mars Adventure or something like titled like that kind of campaign. It won't just be, here are some new additions. It won't be, Ochi has a new hat. It will be a new campaign as well. A
proper co-op mode would be nice for that.
Yeah.
A co-op mode like they had in Pikmin 3. That would be wonderful. I'm
hungry for Pikmin 5, but unfortunately I think they will like delay that a little bit and they will do Pikmin 4, like there's another Ochi or Ochi's sister or something. So my big 3 is like multiplayer Zelda game, 2D Metroid, and then Pikmin 4 Switch 2 edition. Those are the quote unquote realistic, I think. The crazy ones, I'm trying to think, what is a crazy one they could really bust out for September? Because they typically they would tease like a game a year away. I think that's very possible. So I'm trying to think of what's a game like next fall or next summer. I think they really could just be like, remember Mario? He's back. Here is 3D Mario. So I think they could tease that. And I'm trying to think of like a crazy NSO system they could add. Like I really want I just want to like will this into existence, like Saturn. Like Sega's like, listen, we don't know how to port things. Here's just Saturn, and like M2 or whoever or Nerd can do it. So Saturn will come to NSO, and then my third crazy thing. What's like a good spinoff or a good IP that they haven't brought back in a long time? I don't know, maybe like Fossil Fighters. Like Fossil Fighters is back for why not? Here it is.
Deep cut.
Yeah. So those are my 3 crazy ones. Is that Sega Saturn, NSO, Fossil Fighters is coming back, and let's say 3D Mario. Now is the time.
Thank you very much for those wild pieces of speculation. So we will start to bring things to a close here. And so I think lastly, we will just come back to you. Is there anything you're working on for Tokyo Game Life that you're willing to share here? Like any upcoming trips for the show or features that you want to tease?
I actually have like my next several episodes like already kind of like in the bag. Like, so that's really a really comforting feeling. I technically don't need to record any interviews the entire month of August because I have all those episodes lined up. I don't want to spoil what they're about, but one is a really cool like general topic about a media franchise that has a lot of Japanese games. So not a gaming series, but a interesting media franchise that oddly has many Japanese games. And then another one, what's my other one? Oh, a place that I recently visited that I will, a cafe, I'll give you that hint, that I will feature heavily. And another one is another kind of a revived IP has come back that I featured on the podcast before. And a new game just came out for this IP, and I talked to an expert about that. And yeah, so those are some episodes that are coming up to look forward to.
Can't wait to hear them. They sound great. And so, lastly, could you remind listeners where they can find you and Tokyo Game Life online?
Yeah, Tokyo Game Life is on all podcast platforms. Just search Tokyo Game Life, or my website, tokyogamelife.com, has all my episodes on there as well. I'm also on Blue Sky or other, whatever social media you have. I have an account there. Just search Tokyo Game Life. I post a lot of pictures from my life in Japan, all gaming related. So it's not like, oh, here's the ramen I ate. It is always gaming related. So you can check that out there as well.
I can vouch for Mono there. That is a great follow. If you like seeing various ephemera from around Tokyo and Japan, follow on Instagram and Blue Sky. It's all very interesting. Mono, this has been an absolute delight. Thank you so much for joining me on this journey through Nintendo's summer. Mono from Tokyo Game Life, thank you one last time.
Thank you so much for having me.
And that is a wrap on this episode of Dialogue Tree. My thanks once more to Mono from Tokyo Game Life for his time and insights. I am a big fan of Mono's show and style, so it was a genuine honour to have him on here. If you are not already, please go and subscribe to his show. Now, I think we did a good job combing over these games, and yet there are still many, many aspects of them that we simply did not have the time to touch on. I think that speaks to the surprising depth of these nominally air quotes budget titles. So to finish up with a few thoughts on these, we'll start with Star Fox, the game I was least excited about, yet consequently the game I was most surprised by. It is even more replayable than I remember. The impulse to retry levels to get a few more points here, a few more points there, made all the more inviting by just how good the game feels to play. Away from those mechanics, it's the little things. The cutscenes, pausable and skippable, are an inessential but welcome addition. The visual glow-up that elevates certain levels, the rolling waves of Zone S and the Space Odyssey warp trip of Meteos come to mind, is noticeable and in some cases really quite wonderful, a showcase for the juice in this year-old system. The fact that 3D combat in all range mode is roughly 10 times more fun than I remember, the Star Wars aping dogfighting exciting and cinematic in a way most Nintendo games aren't. The fact that Slippy is no longer an intentional irritant, but is now an admittedly unpleasantly shiny, enthusiastic and endearing geek whose tiny baseball cap, perched delicately between the eyes on his dramatically oversized head, will never not make me laugh. And on that note, the fact that it is just plain funny to see a handsomely animated bipedal fox getting a can of something from his on-ship mini-fridge. Lastly, that multiplayer mode. Limited in features that I hope will be expanded, I can think of no better advertisement for the solidity of the game mechanics here than the fact that one of my daughters absolutely loves this mode. She can't shoot anything, or really do any of the objectives, but she doesn't need to. She just loves flying, bombing, and yes, barrel rolling. A timeless recommendation for the timeless game design and timeless game feel. Rhythm Heaven Groove is the game I expected to spend the least time with, but ended up being the opposite. I've spoken about this game on 2 podcasts now, and even though there is theoretically little to say about a collection of rhythm minigames, I still feel like I've only scratched the surface and barely given it the credit it is due. A ridiculously addictive, compellingly silly game that still somehow balances challenge and accessibility, I think Rhythm Heaven Groove is an almost perfect marriage of some of Nintendo's design philosophies. Easy to pick up, difficult to master, as they say, on a tight budget and scope, playable and replayable by a wide audience of all ages and abilities. The best 3 minigames? Well, the game really does put its best foot forward in the first set of levels, with Hoop Trundling, Brolly Good Show and Disc Dog feeling like instant entries into the Rhythm Heaven Hall of Fame. But for me, you can add Slice and Dice Kitchen, Fruit Flex and Sweeper Star in all of their 1 and 2 variants to this list. Musically, God, all of it? Well, I tend to gravitate towards the vocal tracks, so Remix 2, Hop Stop and Roll and Love Forever, the Ado track that Mono mentioned, all come to mind, but just for sheer silly Rhythm Heaven energy, I want to know Alien Alphabet, Stop and Go and Stop, and the damn music that plays in the tutorial for each minigame. You have to be a genius, evil or otherwise, to compose something so insidiously catchy, so hats off to those evil overlords at THX for that one. The minigame that made me most question my choices in life? Well, glad you asked. That'd be A for effort. While that, and Sneezy Moon, will haunt my nightmares for years to come, this game will ultimately stick with me in a more positive way. The multiplayer is very good, provided you can play with people who don't find rhythm games stressful, and there is a diverse range of games on offer. That's one aspect of the game that is giving it staying power here. The other is what keeps drawing me back in, despite other games pulling me away. The medals, the perfects, the rewarding drop-in, drop-out gameplay. Rhythm Heaven is back, the same as it ever was, and for that, we should be grateful. And the game that I'll wrap up here with wears two titles. It was the game I was most excited for and ended up having the most issues with. Then became the game I had the most issues with that I may end up playing for over 50 hours. Splatoon Raiders has its issues. The linear, samey, quite dull level design. The first half of the game, where I felt bombarded by gacha-esque mobile game aesthetic adjacent loot pop-ups, boons and buffs to the point of meaningless, the flash and the froth reminded me of the parlour roguelikes and bullet heavens that I've never really warmed to. But then, as the game warms up, and the challenge heats up, as Splatoon Raiders starts to present more of the virtues of the series that it spun off from in a new context, then so do I warm to it. To repeat what I said with Mono, I think the best parts of single-player Splatoon rest on the tension between being overwhelmed in close quarters and your ability to find creative or spectacular ways out of that. The sometimes comically large enemies in Splatoon Raiders are the question that EPD5 have posed to themselves and the player, and the gadgets and tools system is the answer. There is enough in this system to make Splatoon Raiders the most personally expressive game in the series. Something that allows for flexibility, experimentation, and most importantly, absolute anarchy on the battlefield. That I can enter a raid, fail, but immediately interpret how I should change my game plan, alter my build, and retry without feeling penalised is a great asset to the game. You can favour a tank type, a playstyle, but everything feels so good and usable that switching doesn't feel punitive. I never feel aggrieved at having to use a tactical tank over my beloved speed build, for example. That Splatoon Raiders has me using weapons I normally hate, hello Splatbrella, hello Splatana, for practical purposes, but also just because, is a testament to how effectively this evolves the single-player experience. In Turf War, if you're anything like me, you pick your weapon and you stick to it, for fear of failure, for fear of letting your squad down. In Raiders, I want to try everything. I want to retry challenges with different setups to see how much chaos I can create, and how quickly, to optimise a run at a boss just to see how weapons and tanks work together. It can be hard and overwhelming, but this game does the thing that makes hard games accessible to me, making the player character feel tough, powerful and mobile. It's the bosses, the multi-level dungeons, the bigger challenges that unlock the joy of Splatoon Raiders for me. At the time of writing, I am close to rolling credits, after which I know there is a pretty epic sounding postgame, which I am uncommonly intrigued by. We'll see how that plays out, but to round this out with a few more positive observations, like all looter shooters, there are too many systems and proper nouns, but they are all pretty easy to engage with here. The speed at which you can drop in and out of any mission, the look of the game, the rounded, vibrant, primary colour glow also seen in Mario Kart World and Donkey Kong Bonanza that is Nintendo's current house style, the excellent sampler dungeons, single-player puzzle platforming challenges that echo Splatoon 3's single-player mode, Big Man's ridiculously overpowered showstopper attack, and oh my word, those mini-games, unlocked by upgrading your hub world and access through a little arcade cabinet. These are NES-styled micro-monsters designed for maximum difficulty and maximum addiction. The juggling minigame, where you move two characters independently with the two joysticks, is the work of deviant minds and a joy of tiny game design. Just one more little thing that makes this supposedly small experience much more than I expected, and much more than I initially thought. I've enjoyed all these games, probably more than I assumed I would, but at this point, as I teeter on the precipice of something resembling an addiction to this game, it may be Splatoon Raiders that I look back on as the peak of this particular period of the Switch 2's life. It may not be the game I wanted, but coming to terms with its linear nature and accepting it for what it is and not what I dreamed has been key. It may not have the beach balls or the water flumes that the concept art promised, and it may not, inexplicably, have couch co-op. But the spoiled tropical vibes, the invitation to push back by making a mess, the impulse to experiment and express and make your own challenge, well, that feels kind of timely. As the nights eventually draw in, and I become wistful for the heat, I can see myself looking back on June and July as a time of uncommon generosity from a giant publisher, where we were given big experiences in tiny packages, immediate communal fun that can last for years. I see Splatoon Raiders standing slightly above the others, possibly on the back of a dancing manta ray, likely surrounded by orbs of paint, surfing on the back of a shark into the horizon and onto new adventures. The future of the series is unclear. The industry at large may be in a constant state of crisis, but I think that these games, what they do and what they say, are a cause for optimism. Ultimately, that's what I'll remember from this Nintendo summer. Thanks for listening. In the episode description, you can find a link to the show notes, which includes information on everything discussed on the show today. You've heard music throughout from Splatoon Raiders, Star Fox, and of course, Rhythm Heaven Groove. The artwork for Dialogue Tree was designed by Pixel Benny, and you can find the show online at dialoguetree.cc. Talk to you next time.